Shine bright up all night, we're never slowing down. Fall in love, drunk mistakes, we're bound to hit the ground. Gotta keep this feeling, keep on breathing, even if we're slipping away. So I close my eyes and lose myself now, do it like it's only a day.
Hello everyone, Dinelle from KAD Designs and Audiophile Trading, and it's tool time. We're going to talk about the 3 different fasteners that we use exclusively at Audiophile Trading. So let's start with the one at the right. So this is an M5 T-nut. It's also called a drive-in nut. Next up is what you call a threaded insert. This is also an M5. And last up is a riv nut or a nut set. Each of these have particular applications and they are not interchangeable. There are some cases where you can only use this and neither of these two. So we've created a few demonstration pieces to show where you would want to use each of these. What we have here is an assortment of materials that we typically use in audio fabrication. This is a piece of 3/4 inch MDF. In this case, this is MR MDF, moisture resistant. This is a piece of 1/4 inch cast acrylic, and this is a piece of 3/16 PVC. There are cases where you can use several means and there are cases where you cannot. So let's look at MDF, which is a very popular option. I would not ever recommend a riv nut. The crumple zone for the riv nut is a lot shorter than the thickness of the material. Even if you were to use, let's say, a stepper bit and create a section inside of here, something like this, and then you were to put this in here and compress it, this material is very soft. It will be unable to support the installation of a riv nut. So let's not choose a riv nut for this application. We have an M5 T-nut or an M5 threaded insert. One of them is installed using this. So what we do, like this, and we thread that in that way. You can choose to use some method of adhesive to bond this inside of here, and similarly for a drive-in nut, and you use a dead blow hammer and insert that. There's a challenge, however, when you use a drive-in nut. Typically these are installed on the back side, and this is the front of the material. So with a threaded insert, when you thread this in, it's pretty sturdy. However, with a drive-in nut, with a drive-in nut like this, see what happens? There's nothing that's mechanically holding this onto this. So even if you were to put, let's say, some CA glue or epoxy, it still is a very weak joint when installing a fastener. However, if you were to tighten this up all the way, it's strong in that regard, but during installation it's very finicky. Let's take a look at PVC. So again, this is the back, this is the front. You have the same situation where if you thread this up and it jiggles, that pops out. Even if you were to put CA glue between these pieces, it's still only as strong as the glue. In a case like this, because the material is so thin, this is what happens with a threaded insert. If you were to use, let's say, a thicker piece of material like 5/8, then you would not have an issue with a threaded insert. So far I've showed you that the threaded insert is a superior piece of fastener. Let's take this and talk about this one more time. If we were to put this here, there is material to compress. However, during the compressing phase of this rivet, it will actually damage the material. It will not hold. Which takes us to the last piece. This is cast acrylic. This is a very strong piece. You could consider this to be aluminum, steel, whatever material like this. We would only ever recommend using this, or if you have a drill and tap set. So you would see that there are 2 examples of how I did this. One of them is an incorrect way and one of them is a more preferred way. This method shows that the expansion zone is very limited. It's very discontinuous. So what's going to happen if I run this up and I wiggle it? It's already slack in there. What I did in this one, I created a bigger hole, so there's now a void inside this place so that the expansion of the rivet is uniform. This piece is very strong. I can wiggle this all day long and there's no movement. So this is the preferred zone. And let's talk about the expansion zone. So this is an M5 riv nut mounted on Matco Tools RV16 riv nut gun. So take a look at the expansion zone. See it? So that zone that's deforming, it's actually expanding. It's just like a rivet, right? So let's take this out. So in a control environment, this expansion would be linear. Because I had nothing like this to control the expansion, it was free. Really and truly, you should use this on very thin materials like this, so that the entire expansion zone comes after the material. It isn't always the case. Sometimes you would have to use this. If you can use a riv nut on acrylic, I would say yes. If you can't and you can drill and tap, I'd say go for it, but this is the better method for this, because it allows you to thread a bolt in and out in as many times without damaging this material. We hope that this really explains how and where and why you would use these different types. We've seen many cases where the wrong type of application is used for either of these, especially with a riv nut. There's a correct side and a wrong side to use a riv nut. As with any of them, you have to consider mechanical advantage. If you put a nut on this side and there's a fastener, it will pull out this way. So you always want to install riv nuts, T-nuts on the reverse side for strength. Thanks for looking.